A renowned scientist stood before the world, his face pale with fear. Tonight he warned a danger unlike any other will strike. Everything is at risk. Everything could be destroyed. The world faces its gravest threat. Panic spread like wildfire. People built shelters, gathered supplies, and sought every possible protection. Cities were filled with fear. Families clung to each other, trembling at the thought of the impending disaster. But among all the chaos, one man remained calm. His neighbors asked him, "Why aren't you afraid? Everyone is preparing for the worst." He smiled gently and said, "I am not worried because I trust in God Almighty. If He is the creator of all, then He alone decides what shall be destroyed and what shall remain. I do not fear what He wills to protect or to save." The night came dark and stormy, shaking the earth and testing the courage of every heart. People trembled in their shelters, relying on their own preparations. Yet the man who trusted in God remained at peace. Through the night, not a hair on his head was harmed. When dawn broke, the world realized that no disaster had struck. The man's faith had protected him. He looked at the others and said, "Do not let fear rule your heart. Prepare as you must. But remember, God Almighty is the guardian of all. His word alone decides who is safe and who is not. Trust in Him and no fear can destroy you. Moral faith in God Almighty is stronger than fear. True safety lies not in our own preparations, but in surrendering to His will, trusting that His protection is absolute." In a small village there lived a young man named Elias. He was full of dreams but often felt lost and unmotivated. His days were spent with a group of friends who loved to gossip, complain, and waste hours on meaningless chatter. No matter how bright Elias's ideas were, the group laughed or dismissed them. Slowly he felt drained, confused, and stuck in a rut. One evening, while wandering alone near a quiet stream, Elias met an elderly gardener. The old man was tending to his plants, gently pruning and watering each one. Elias shared his frustrations. The gardener smiled and said, "See these plants? Some grow strong because they're nurtured in the right soil with sunlight and care. Others left in weeds and shadows wither." Elias nodded, still unsure. The gardener continued, "People are like gardens too. Surround yourself with those who inspire, teach and uplift you. Avoid those whose words drain your spirit. Their company is like weeds. It wastes your time and suffocates your growth." Elias reflected deeply. The next day he started spending time with people who challenged him, encouraged his dreams and shared wisdom. Gradually his confidence grew, his ideas blossomed, and he felt a deep joy he had never known before. He realized that every conversation is a seed, and every company is soil. If the soil is poor, the seed may never grow. But in fertile, nourishing company, a person can bloom beyond imagination. Moral: choose your company wisely. The people you spend time with shape your thoughts, your growth, and ultimately your destiny. Every morning, Adam rushed past the small park near his apartment, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, always promising himself, "Tomorrow I will slow down." One evening on his way home, a power cut darkened the street. Only one small lamp was glowing near a broken bench. Beneath it sat an old watch repairer quietly polishing a dusty clock. Adam stopped without knowing why. The old man smiled and said gently, "Do you know the price of this clock?" Adam shrugged. "I guess it depends on how old it is." The old man shook his head. "No, it depends on how much time is left inside it." Adam laughed softly. "But no one knows that." The old man looked into his eyes with kindness. "That is why time is the only currency you spend without ever knowing the balance." Something inside Adam became still. That night he went home and ignored He sat beside his tired mother and listened to her stories. He called a friend he had not spoken to in years. Before sleeping, he whispered a simple prayer of gratitude for a day he almost rushed past. Weeks later, Adam passed the park again. The lamp was still there. The bench was still broken, but the old man was gone. In his place rested a small note. "Use your time the way you would use your last coin." Adam finally understood. Life does not ask how busy you were. It only remembers how present you were. And from that day on, he began to spend his time like something priceless. Because it truly was. His journey through understanding transformed how he cherished every single day. Every moment became an opportunity to connect and to live fully. He found joy in listening, learning, and being truly present with others. His days were filled with meaningful interactions that enriched his life. He discovered happiness in giving his time to others and in cherishing each moment. It was a freezing night. Thunder rolled across the sky and dark clouds shook the air with fear. Inside a warm house, a father watched his children sitting quietly under thick blankets, frightened by the sound of the storm. Suddenly a small voice echoed from outside. "Hot eggs, hot eggs." Surprised, the man stepped out into the cold. At the gate, he saw a thin, innocent boy standing alone in the rain, carrying a small basket of eggs. The man gently asked Child, "Aren't you afraid to walk alone at this hour, in such terrible weather?" The boy looked up and smiled softly. "Sir, nothing is more frightening than hunger. And as for fear, your children trust your God to protect this house. But I trust the one who created the entire universe." The man whispered almost to himself, "My children are safe inside, yet they are afraid." The boy replied with quiet faith, "You trust your God, sir." "And I trust my God." The storm continued to roar, but in that small voice the man heard something stronger than thunder, unshakable trust. Moral true protection does not come from walls, locks, or guards. It comes from a heart that trusts God even when the night is dark and the road is cold. Faith makes the weak brave, and hope keeps the hungry standing. An old king had no son, and feared that his kingdom would fall into the wrong hands. So he invited all the young men who wished to serve the kingdom. He gave each of them one seed and said, "Plant this seed. Return after 1 year. The one who brings the best plant will become my successor." Among them was a poor but sincere boy named Ahmed. He planted the seed carefully. He watered it, placed it in sunlight, and waited patiently. Days passed, weeks passed, but nothing grew. Still, Ahmed did not change the seed. A year later, the palace was filled with young men carrying beautiful, healthy plants. Ahmed stood quietly, holding only an empty pot. When the king asked him where his plant was, Ahmed lowered his head and said, "Your Majesty, I planted the seed honestly, but nothing grew." The king smiled and announced, "This boy is my successor." Everyone was shocked. The king explained, "All the seeds I gave were boiled. No plant could grow from them. You all replaced your seeds." But Ahmed protected the truth. He embraced Ahmed and said, "Only the one who stands with honesty deserves to rule." And so Ahmed received the crown. Moral truth may look small today, but it is strong enough to build your future. Honesty is the real success and the greatest reward. In a small village lived a poor cobbler named Fika. He used to sit under a tree with his small wooden box and repair people's shoes. Life was extremely hard for him. He had no house, no wife, no children. All he owned in the world were one sheet, one pillow, and one small wooden box. At night, he would spread his sheet outside a closed school place, his pillow beside the wall, and sleep there quietly. One early morning, a flood suddenly struck the village. When Fika opened his eyes, there was noise everywhere. People were running in all directions, carrying whatever valuable things they could save from their homes. Fika watched silently. He stood up, climbed onto the water tank beside the school, spread his sheet, placed his pillow near the wall, lay down comfortably, and began watching the scene. Someone was running with cash, someone with jewelry, someone with goats, someone with household valuables. Just then a man came running past him, loaded with gold ornaments, money, and clothes. When he saw Fika lying calmly, he stopped and shouted, "Hey, Fika! We have lost everything. Our lives are in danger, and you are lying here peacefully." Fika laughed and replied softly, "Friend, today is the day poverty finally helped me." When I heard this story, I laughed, but then a thought quietly entered my heart. I began to think about the day of judgment. Perhaps that scene will look very similar. On one side, the poor will be standing for their accountability, their daily bread, their clothes, their prayers, their duties to God and their duties to people. On the other side, the rich will be standing for their accountability. Plazas, shops, factories, cars, mansions, gold and silver, servants, wealth. What was lawful and what was not. Comfort and luxury, charity duties to God and duties to people. They will be soaked in sweat, trembling with fear, burdened by countless questions. And on one side, the poor will be watching them, with a strange calm on their faces, perhaps whispering in their hearts. When the world quietly collapsed around Lena, no one noticed. The job she prayed for slipped away. The people she trusted slowly disappeared. Even her own heart felt unsure of itself. One night, exhausted and trembling, she whispered into the silence, "Why does everything become harder just when I try to move forward?" No thunder answered her. No miracle appeared. Only a soft understanding settled inside her chest. Challenges are not sent to break you. They are sent to call you higher." The next morning, Lena stood up. Not because her pain was gone, but because her purpose was still alive. She walked into her fear. She spoke when her voice shook. She tried again even when hope felt fragile. Each struggle quietly shaped her courage. Each setback gently trained her faith. And slowly she realized something sacred. The mountain in front of her was never an obstacle. It was an invitation to grow stronger than yesterday, an invitation to trust God more deeply than before, an invitation to rise into the person she was always meant to become. Because every challenge you face is not a sign that you are losing, it is a quiet sign that your soul is ready to rise. Sarah began many things: a notebook filled with half-written dreams, an online course left at lesson 3, a small business idea saved only as a draft. She was not lazy, she was simply tired of starting and never seeing the end. It is given to those who keep walking. One evening after another quiet failure, she sat alone and whispered, "God, why do I lose my strength halfway?" Her heart felt heavy, but the answer came gently, because strength is not given at the start. Not with excitement. The next morning, Sarah returned to the one small task she had abandoned, not with confidence, only with intention. She promised herself one sacred rule: I will not quit today. The work felt slow, the doubts stayed loud, the results were invisible. But she stayed. Day after day she stayed, and something beautiful. The same girl who once loved beginnings fell in love with endurance. She discovered a quiet truth: starting is courage, but finishing is devotion. Because being able to finish what you started means you trust the process even when the reward is still hidden. And that is a skill the soul must learn. Ayan used to sit on the same broken step every evening, watching the sun disappear behind the dusty buildings. In his heart, he carried one quiet belief: my life is already decided. He had failed once, then again. Each failure whispered the same lie: you are not enough. He did not blame his weakness. He simply changed one small thought: I am still allowed to begin again. One night after a long and painful day, Ayan closed his eyes and spoke softly to God, "Why does nothing change for me?" In that silence, a thought gently touched his heart. What if life is waiting for you to change first? For the first time, Ayan did not fight his past. The next morning, nothing outside was different. The same streets, the same problems, the same empty step. But inside him something had shifted. Days passed. He chose to try, not because he felt strong, but because he finally believed he was guided, not forgotten. Slow steps turned into quiet courage. Quiet courage turned into steady effort. And steady effort slowly shaped a new life. Ayan learned a sacred truth: God does not change our path until we change our heart. Because the moment you change your mind, you give your life permission to change too. In an ancient town, people were feared and avoided for one dark reason: they were known for lying and giving false testimony without shame. In that very town, a man and a woman were married quietly but lawfully. A judge performed the marriage, and 2 witnesses were present exactly as required. For some time they lived together, but one day the husband turned cruel. He threw his wife out of the house and denied every right she had as his lawful wife. With a broken heart and trembling courage, the woman went to the city court and cried for justice. The judge listened carefully. He said gently, "No one in this town even knows about your marriage." With tears in her eyes, the woman replied, "My lord, our marriage was performed according to the law." The judge asked, "Do you have witnesses?" "Yes," she said quietly. 2 witnesses were present when we were married." The judge immediately summoned the husband and the 2 witnesses, but something shocking happened. Standing together in the courtroom, all 3 men spoke with one voice. "We have never seen this woman before today." The woman felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The judge looked deeply into their faces, one by one. He remained silent for a long moment. Then he turned to the woman and asked a strange question. "Does your husband keep dogs at his house?" She answered, surprised. "Yes, he does. I accept their judgment." The judge asked again, "Will you accept the testimony and judgment of those dogs?" The woman, trusting justice more than fear, replied, "Yes." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The judge ordered the guards, "Take this woman to the man's house." He declared if the dogs treat her as a stranger and attack her, then her claim is false. But if the dogs welcome her as one of their own, then her claim is true, and these men are the liars. The moment this order was announced, the color drained from the faces of the husband and the two witnesses. Their hands began to shake, their eyes filled with terror. They knew the truth had already been exposed. Before anyone even reached the house, the judge stood up and said firmly, "Arrest these men!" And in his record, the judge wrote these unforgettable words, "A town is truly ruined when its dogs are more honest than its people." A 55-year-old man was suffering from severe depression. His wife, deeply worried about his condition, took him to a psychologist. The doctor asked the wife to wait outside and began speaking with the man. The man poured out all the pain he had been carrying inside. "Doctor," he said sadly, "my life is full of problems. My job pressure is exhausting. My children's education is expensive. I have a home loan and a car loan. I feel tired of everything. Nothing in life makes me happy anymore." The doctor listened quietly for a while. Then he said, "I want you to visit your old school. Find the register of your 10th grade class. Write down the names of all your classmates and discover what their lives look like today. Record everything in a notebook. Come back and see me after 1 month." The man was surprised but followed the advice. He visited the school and found the register. It had 120 names. For an entire month, he tried to learn about the lives of his classmates. After great effort, he managed to gather information about 75 of them. What he discovered shocked him deeply.